Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to be talking about the season finale of The Lower Decks, episode 10, season 4.
Old friends.
New planets.
New planets.
This was a lot of fun. There were a lot of Easter eggs in this one. A lot of shout outs to other movies that we've seen in Star Trek universe and nods to previous episodes in other seasons of The Lower Decks.
I think in this one, the thing that I liked the most was the completion of the story arc with Mariner.
Yes.
Like, she you know, in episode 9, she sort of comes to terms with why she is the way she is, and then episode 10 really gives her the opportunity to show that growth. Like, in the beginning of this season, she'd have been the type that would have I don't even think in the beginning she would have necessarily joined Locarno, but she would have been more sympathetic to his cause. And by episode 10, she was confident in who she is as a Starfleet officer. And seeing the flashback to the Academy was kind of fun.
Well, because we've been talking about this like pretty much the entire season. We've been talking about her and her past. Then the last couple episodes with Locarno and everything, you were talking about Wesley Crusher and Nova Squadron.
Oh yeah.
And then boom, first thing in this newest episode.
We flash back to, and Lower Decks is canon, so I found it kind of interesting how the dialogue was written, because it's cartoonish.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little over the top. You wouldn't have actually seen this, like, in a TNG style format, but they brought, the original actors who played Nick Locarno, Wesley Crusher, and Cito.
Yeah.
They brought those 3 characters back, and they added the character of Josh, who we never actually really saw in the first duty because he was the one who died.
I was about to say, he was the one that died.
He was already dead by the time we meet the other 4. So one of the cadets was left out, the other female in the group. But they brought that Josh character back, of course. He's going to die. But, they show the relationship between Cito and Mariner, and that was kind of cool to see that. And to kind of bring that full circle.
It was a lot of fun. Did you notice that Locarno is very much stuck mentally, emotionally in the past when he, after he kidnaps Beckett, on his jacket, the little emblem on his breast and the back of his jacket is the starburst pattern that he has on his tablet, or Wesley has on his tablet when he's talking to
the Culvered starburst, which is the maneuver that killed the cadet.
But he's so stuck in this moment emotionally, stuck in this moment of his past that he cannot get out.
It's like that high school quarterback that never gets any more glory than that.
Yeah. Like the uncle in Napoleon Dynamite. I bet in my prime I could have thrown this football clear across those mountains.
You're right. And it's a creative take because the way the first duty ends, it's sort of like it's implied that Nick Locarno reluctantly steps up and falls on the sword and takes responsibility so that the other 3 cadets in his squadron can stay at the Academy. He doesn't double down on the lie. He doesn't try to pass blame in the moment of the episode. But clearly over time, as the effect of being kicked out, of being shunned, of being disgraced has weighed on him over the course of, I think it's only a few years. Like I said, Lower Decks takes place shortly after Star Trek Nemesis, so it's not like 15 or 20 years later. It's maybe like 6 or 7 years later. So it's not like that much time has passed, but it's a moment in his life, and it's a choice that he made that he can't overcome. And I was wondering if they were going to let him overcome it in the episode, and he didn't. He doesn't really. No,
not at all.
Like he
doubles down on it.
He kind of does, and he's like he's convinced he can deactivate the Genesis device.
But it's a Ferengi Genesis device, so 2 bars of Latinum, please.
There's a paywall, and I was thinking about that. Well, who gets the Latinum after the device is deactivated? That's the part I.
Where do you stick the Latinum in?
I does that work? But I thought that was brilliant. Like that
Oh, yeah.
moment in there was genius. It meant a somewhat unfortunate end for Nick Locarno, because then he becomes part of the new planet, Locarno. But still, in the end, you kind of want your antagonist, you want your villain, you want them to kind of learn their lesson,
And he doesn't.
and that's, I'm kind of sad, like, that his character gets so stuck that it can't grow.
I mean, I enjoyed it because there are people in the real world that get stuck in these roles in their head and they just cannot escape them. And so for him, it's not that he learned a lesson. He got his just desserts. He gets punished for the things the crimes that he's committed and the things that he's done. I thought it was a great, very fitting ending for him.
I guess because I'm attached to Tom Paris.
Well,
that's
that's
same
another thing I was
character
going to
that
say.
went in a different direction. Literally, it's the same character. They just took him in a different direction.
I was going to say is that because the show is canon, and we have a Tom Paris and we have the Nicholas Locarno, now we have to. It's like the time paradox thing where you have the same person, two versions of the same person.
Rutherford. They have the same face.
I don't see it, man. I just don't see it. But you have, it's like,
like
you have
Tom
two
Paris.
people that are the same. They're the same person in the same timeline at the same time. One of them has to die, and it's typically like the older version has to die. So this one, you have Nicholas Locarno has to go so that Tom Paris can thrive. That's how I kind of saw it. Because we've been talking about the fact that these people are basically the same person.
It's basically the same character,
and
same
Nick
backstory.
Locarno's character was created before
Tom Paris.
Tom Paris's
Yes.
character. So Tom Paris, you're lucky you're younger.
I guess, I'm not saying that the story arc doesn't make sense. It totally does.
Yeah.
Like, he was the villain. He did some pretty dastardly things, although he really didn't, like,
He didn't kill anybody.
So he had a line, but he was intent on harming Beckett at the end. And I think that was just kind of sad, because it was sad in a sad, pathetic, spiraling, like, oh, you're kind of beyond help now. But even after because Mariner has to see that he's pulling the trigger on the phaser. She's beamed out and the phaser beam goes basically through the transporter beam. And even then she's like, we have to go back for Nick. And
she's
like,
because
nope,
she's grown so much.
She I think sees where she could have been in Locarno. So I think that's a mirror, where if she had continued down her path, she could have ended up a lot like Nick,
holding on to that bitter hatred of whatever situation that she was in, and the fact that she lost her idol. Exactly.
So I think in that context, for the sake of Mariner's character, Locarno had to have the ending that he had, really to solidify her own growth and for her own progression and her own arc.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, you like that?
It. Yeah, I do.
Sometimes I have some insight into storytelling. I try.
That's why you're the captain.
Yeah.
No, I liked the episode a lot. I mean, the growth that we've seen from all of the primary characters throughout the season, the fact that Tendi is going to go face down her past and her sister, like, for real this time, not just like helping her sister before she becomes the leader of the syndicate family.
I'll be interesting to see where that story goes.
Yeah.
I really love the character of Tendi.
Yes.
So I'm hoping it doesn't go off into the sunset kind of a thing.
And I love her and Rutherford. They're so adorable.
It's very adorable. It's very sweet.
I don't need them to be in a relationship or anything. I think that would kind of ruin it. But the fact that they have that little bit of tension there.
Oh, it's very cute.
But they're like BFFs through and through. I just absolutely adore it. So I'm sad. Like Rutherford at the very...
You believe that sadness in Rutherford.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I felt that. I'm like, oh, it's an animated show. But I feel that.
Yeah, because he's like got the smile at the very end, but then right before his face leaves frame, he's very sad.
He's very sad.
I was like, oh,
yeah,
Rutherford.
So here we have another example of we need all the senior staff to go on an away mission.
But
And
we needed,
Boimler's left in command of the Cerritos.
but we needed a reason to give Boimler, that little push to becoming what he is meant to be.
Right.
Like his doppelganger becomes like first officer or whatever on the Titan, and then ends up in Section 31. So, he has the potential to be great, and he's just has that fear and lack of what's the word I'm looking for here?
It's a lack of self-confidence.
That's where I was like, self-assurance, self-confidence. He's just lacking all of that, but now he's starting to gain that self-confidence and self-assurance.
Yeah.
And we see that because he's like super confident with when he talks to the admiral.
Oh yeah.
He shuts him down and turns off the comms. I was like, oh, Boimler.
I think that works because he was given permission in the sense because the captain of the Cerritos entrusted him with command, and in this instance, there was a clearly defined right and wrong.
Yeah.
In this case, the Starfleet admiral was not on scene, did not have the scope or the understanding of the changing dynamics of the situation, and therefore was not really in a position to be giving out orders anyway.
No. But still, we've seen Boimler in situations where we as the audience know the path that he should be taking, but he is like, I don't know what to do, and he just fumbles and trips over himself.
Yeah.
But this time he was like 100% confident in the moment, and he knew exactly what to do. And I love that they gave him that moment.
Yeah.
And of course, at the very end, when he's sitting there bantering with Beckett, and their brother sister kind of relationship that they got going on, that was perfect ending for the two of them this season.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked the whole thing, the whole wrap up, like how the what did he call it? The Nova Fleet or whatever was the
Nova Squad, Nova Fleet
was just basically a culmination of different species versions of lower decks.
I love Boimler. The Maquis might have something to say about that.
That whole thing was brilliant. That I love that aside type stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, actually, point of order, like.
So overall, I think that this was a fantastic season finale for this series or for this season. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. This whole season's been really, really good, really fun. I mean, some episodes were a little but the side story throughout the entire season with the Locarno's ship and everything, I thought they did a pretty good job because they didn't put too much focus on it until the very end.
Yeah. And this season we really saw a lot of growth and development within the characters and their interactions. The addition of the Vulcan lower deck character.
Yes.
Just great storytelling and fun storytelling without being too serious. Remaining, I think, true to a lot of the spirit of Star Trek without getting too overly silly in the animation humor side of it.
Yeah.
I think you can really tell that this show is written by people with a sense of humor
who also enjoy,
but who are real true diehard fans of the show and who really understand everything about the show. Like it's so fun watching all these Easter eggs. Like the Maquis might have something to say about that. Why does he look like Tom Paris?
I just don't see it, man. I just don't see it. They look exactly the same.
They have the same face.
One thing, I thought you would have said it by now, but one of the Easter eggs that I caught, and I caught it the first time I watched this episode, but I had to, during the second time I watched it, I had to like do some research. The scenes when they're in the nebula, in the storm, that was straight out of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought that was fantastic. I'm like, why is this so familiar? And it's like the screen is like all snowy and trying to get itself corrected. And then the ships, like how they cross over each other. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I like boopity booped on my phone and I found the scene where they're just drifting over each other, and Khan's just like, "Where are you?"
Oh yeah, it's like a crazy Ivan in Submarine Warfare. It's just like that cat and mouse. Yeah, that's a very Star Trek thing. Obviously, Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan. But yeah, like
I
that, and
loved
that's
it.
that. I mean, that's the brilliance of, bringing back a Genesis device, from
I mean,
Star Trek
okay,
3.
yeah, of
Like,
course you had to have that with the Genesis device.
but even the musical cues in the episode had original series movie vibes to them. I mean, the whole thing. It's just that's what I'm saying. That you can really tell the depth of knowledge by the people behind Lower Decks, because
Yeah.
they're reaching not just to next gen, they're reaching to all of Star Trek canon to draw from, the
I
new
love
stuff
it.
and the olds. And it's fantastic to see it all come together in a lighthearted, don't take yourself too seriously kind of way, because I do think Star Trek in the past in particular really has had a tendency to be really heavy in the drama and really take itself a little too seriously, that it can be a challenge to watch.
Yeah.
And I think Lower Decks does a really good job of balancing humor without like totally making fun of Star Trek in the
Yeah.
process.
They're not making it super campy and silly, but they're giving it just enough of that extra flavor.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it. I got nothing else for this episode.
Well, I'd like to know what our audience thinks.
I would too.
Please feel free to leave a comment.
Yeah,
We do read them.
we do.
And
All two of the
occasionally
comments that we've gotten.
And we reply when appropriate.
Yeah, so please drop us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. If you have questions for us specifically, let us know. And yeah. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Let me try that again. Thank you all so much for joining us on this wonderful adventure of the 4th season of the Lower Decks. I cannot wait for the next show or movie that we will talk about, but we'll let you know when that happens. And until then, I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
We'll see you next time.